All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Lyndsay Dowd. Lyndsay, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
It's an honor to be here. I put a huge amount of currency on relationships, so I couldn't think of a better show to be
Well,
to be sitting with you on.
I'll tell you, it has been, you and I have already got to connect and have a conversation and get to know each other. And of course, the way we got connected, through the Quoted platform. And I'll tell you, I found out about them about a year ago, and I have had such a great experience with them.
Great.
I have found some amazing podcast guests through that platform. And so the bar is really high. And I already know that just from our previous conversation, I was really looking forward to doing this interview with you today,
Me
Lyndsay.
too.
And
Me too. I'm really
so
happy to be here.
so we'll just dig right in. I'll start off with a really simple, easy question. What do you do and who do you serve, Lyndsay?
Well, the easiest way to tell that is to just take you through my story, which won't take
Okay,
very long, but it will help you understand the impetus and the genesis of why I do what I do.
sure.
I spent 25 years in corporate America, and 23 of them were climbing the ranks at IBM. And I used to run a lot of first of a kind businesses for them, a lot of broken businesses, and I led big sales teams. And I had a glorious decorated career. And oh, by the way, my family put in 105 years at Big Blue. So it was quite a legacy. I was the last one standing, and at the end of 23 years, I was ready for a change. And another company sought me out and said, "Would you come and lead a sales team for us?" And I enthusiastically said yes. And I packed up everything I knew and all of my beautiful awards and recognition, and off I went. And in 6 short months, they fired me. And
Wow.
I was gutted. I am not the girl who gets fired. I'm the girl you call to do the hard stuff. So it was a total shock. It was deeply personal. And the leader who fired me, I really shouldn't even call her a leader. She wanted a micromanager and told me that she thought she had pretty low EQ. I told her she was right. It was not a good fit, but it was the shove out of the nest I needed. And at that time, once I was fired, I had so much shame, so much sadness around this really epic loss of my career. And I had to sit with that. And for a month, I really couldn't even talk about it. And I asked myself at the end of that month 3 questions. What am I really good at? What do I love to do? And how can I help people the most? And that last one was really important to me. And I knew how to build modern leaders, and I knew how to create irresistible culture that drives results. I had done it many times, and so I bet on myself. And I started my company, Heartbeat for Hire, and I started coaching individual leaders and C-suites. I started keynote speaking, wrote a couple of books, started a podcast. I have a live show now, and aside from all that, I do LinkedIn workshops for executives and storytelling workshops. So, yeah,
Wow.
that's the journey.
Wow. So what inspires you most about the work that you get to do, Lyndsay, and the impact you get to make?
When I stand in front of a room giving a keynote and I ask the question, who here has had a bad leader?
Mhm.
100% of the room raises their hands
That makes sense.
with no
Everybody's experienced
hesitation.
that.
But when I ask the converse, who here has had a great leader?
Mhm.
It's a lot less. And most people that I talk to have never worked for someone who has inspired them or got the best out of them. And what they describe is it's just a job. And so for me, through the books, through the podcast, through the live shows, through coming on shows like this, I'm trying to shine a light on what good leadership looks and feels like because we have enough bad leaders. We need the good leaders. And when you have an experience with an amazing leader, it's totally different than everything you've ever done. You are inspired. You're willing to go that extra mile. You will do work you never knew you could. And that's really what I want to teach leaders to be able to do. And it's not that hard. It's just really human. But it's small behavioral changes, changes of language, understanding the impact of your words. This is really what I help leaders understand and fix.
Yeah. And you are so right, Lindsay, that when we get up And so I am like so inspired. But well, I mean, you like for example, the conversation we already had, and I was like totally looking forward to doing this interview, and not just for myself, but just for whoever's going to be able to just listen in on this and stuff.
Yeah.
And when we are just inspired by what we get to do, and so that
Yes,
makes all the difference in the
it does.
world.
It does. And, leadership comes in many shapes and forms. And, when when you're a corporate leader, sometimes listening to the story of a James Beard Award winning chef or a Grammy Award winner or an author or a speaker or a Hollywood producer, that might be the inspiration you need. Sometimes it's not another corporate leader. And hearing these stories, I love when people come back to me and they say, "Oh my God, that story that so and so told on your show, or that story that you told about your experience, I had that happen to me, but nobody ever gave me the tools to recognize what to do next." And that's what I want to really enlighten people with. And it's really a joy when I can see that connection, that light bulb, that moment where they say, "Oh, wait a minute. I get what she's saying now." When you become somebody's leader, you become the topic of dinner conversation. So you better be thinking about every move you make.
Yeah, yeah. So, what is an example of and we don't have to name names here. I mean, you can if you want, but you certainly don't have to. But what's a result that
Mm.
you have helped a client get that you are just incredibly proud of, Lindsay?
Yeah, the first one that just comes to mind, I worked with a CEO. She was a CFO and she had moved into the CEO role. And those are two very different voices.
Okay.
The CFO is numbers
Mhm.
and you're managing bottom line and you're pretty rigid and pretty strict. So to move into a CEO role where you're not managing numbers anymore, you're entrusting someone else to do that, and you have to inspire people, that's different. And she hired me, and I asked her, I said, "Why do you want to work with me?" And she said, "Well," she goes, "I think people really respect my work. I think they really like what I've done. I don't think they like me." And I went, "Oh, okay. So we need to humanize your voice. And we have a bunch of ways that we're going to do that." And one of those ways, we started leveraging LinkedIn. And she was like, "No, no, I have someone that does that." I said, "No, no, we're going to use this because we're going to do some small things that are going to make some big impacts." For example, I said, "This isn't a really huge company. So I want you," I mean, it was less than 10,000 people. I said, "I want you, anytime there's a new employee, I want you to welcome them publicly on LinkedIn." And I go, "It will take you about 7 seconds." And she's like, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, let's think about it the other way. I'm a new employee. I joined this company, and the first thing that happens is my CEO knows about me and is welcoming me on a public platform to their company. Wow. I feel important. I feel seen. I'm excited to step up." Now that's tiny, but the impact is huge.
Huge. Yeah.
And other things we worked on was, I said to her, I go, "I want to hear you talk about your company like you're talking to a bunch of girlfriends having cocktails. Like, tell me all the things you love about this." And she answered me in this like monotone, flat, like, and I'm like, "Okay, first of all,
Doesn't sound very exciting.
that is not how you talk over cocktails. I know you well enough now to know that that is not true." And she was like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, you totally don't speak like this in the real world. That's the voice people need to see." And the one lesson that she understood after that, and this is a lesson I teach to everyone I coach, is you always want to introduce a little bit of the personal. There is no longer this need for separation of church and state. We don't do that anymore. Back in the manufacturing days, you punched your card, do your job, go home.
Mhm.
Now you're one person. And so, like on LinkedIn, I always tell people add something personal. So on my profile, it says I'm a mom to twins and I'm a wiener dog lover. And the amount of people that connect with me on those things, it's staggering. But what I did was I created a softball, a really easy way in. And so, when you're meeting someone for the first time, and not everybody's great at small talk, but if you see that they do something that you're interested in, or can you tell me about that? What does that mean that, like, Pura Vida, you love Costa Rica. Have you been there? Do you like to vacation there? Like, tell me more. And
Mhm.
what it just does is it creates a way in. And for any executive, gone are the days where you need to be put on a pedestal or your people should be putting you on a pedestal. That has to stop. You want to be relatable, you want to be human, and you want to be accessible. It doesn't mean you're making your calendar available to everyone. What it does mean is that you have a story to tell, you have a soul, and that is what is changing in business now. It's no longer just numbers, just goals, because when you do that, you burn your people out. They're not inspired and they're never going to do their best work.
Yeah. And and you kind of alluded to this earlier, what I've discovered, because I'm just this like naturally curious guy. I love asking questions of entrepreneurs. I love hearing what they're working on and what's got them jazzed and inspired, what challenges they're up against, what opportunities they're trying to take advantage of, and maybe they don't have all the clarity they need around that. And of course, in that process, I'm always defaulting to, well, who do I know that might be able to help them with whatever it is that you're telling me about? But I can't tell you how many times it's just by asking some questions, asking some good questions, and then just listening to people and hearing them out, not with the intention of, oh, what am I going to say next, but just listening to
Yeah, be
listen and then
present.
ask questions about what they're sharing. And
Yeah,
I
I
can't
love that.
tell you how many times over the last, I don't know, 21, 22 years that people have told me, Kevin, man, I just feel so seen, so understood, so just important
Yeah.
because of just the way you show up.
You
And it's
you know
not
how to
fun.
create a safe space, and that psychological safety. So I call that, I don't call them soft skills, I call them power skills.
Okay.
Creating trust and creating psychological safety is a power skill. And the best leaders understand that trust is your currency. It's
Yes,
really, really
absolutely.
important. And the moment you scream at someone publicly or embarrass someone, or belittle them, you are fracturing the trust, not just of that one person, but of everyone in the vicinity of that. And people will talk about that moment, and that fracture reverberates. So
Yeah.
you have to really be aware of the things that you say. And when you can create those safe spaces, oh my gosh, the world opens up. People are inspired. They're willing to take more risks. They know that they've got a leader who's got their back. And one of the things that you have to understand as a leader is failure is part of growth. Everyone will fail, but
Mhm.
how you support your people through that failure is critical. And how you talk about your own failure is also really important to share.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so now that we've got some context set here, I want to switch gears just a little bit,
Sure.
and I want to start talking about the relationship aspect of this.
Mm,
And so, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your
yeah.
experience around this topic of relationships.
Yeah, I I've talked to probably 5 to 8 new people every week.
Okay.
And this has become just a natural part of how I cultivate my network and how I grow my business. But I'm very active on LinkedIn, and my podcast was already underway. My company was already out in the ether, and there was one guy who kept showing up in all my posts. He was connected to all my people, and I'm like, who is this guy? How does he know all of my people? And we ended up setting up a coffee chat, and his name is Scott McGregor.
Okay.
And he has a community called the Outlier Project. And this is 800 or so people who choose to live extraordinary lives. And it's a really wide mix of entrepreneurs and corporate and veterans and professional athletes and
Hmm.
people who are just doing really inspiring, incredible work. Um, and I had no idea what that would become. But it absolutely changed my life in so many ways. And at this point, I've brought in over 70 people into the community. But
Wow.
some of the things that have happened through those relationships, I got to lecture at Harvard. I got a billboard in Times Square. I've been on over 100 podcasts and had a lot of opportunities and a lot of referrals from this network. Now, the community is not built for business referrals. It's built to make you lead a better life, a more extraordinary life. And the relationships supply the rest. And that by putting skin in the game, by being intentional with your time and by showing up for people, the thing that it created for me, which was something I didn't know I needed, was my entire personal board of advisors are made up of outliers.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
these are the people who remind me who I am. They're the people that I call when I'm doubting myself. They're the people that when I have a big idea and I want to share it, I know I can trust them with it. And the thing that I think anybody moving from corporate to an entrepreneurial thing, you can probably relate to this, but your family probably won't understand what you're doing. Your childhood friends probably won't understand. Your neighbors probably won't understand. And so you have this kind of, shoot, I have this great idea. I want to move forward with this, but like I feel alone. And entrepreneurship can be very lonely. So I am never alone as part of this community. And the innate curiosity that exists really keeps my motor running and just introduces me to things that I would never have thought of.
Yeah.
We share a lot of best practices about podcasting. We share a lot of best practices about speaking. We get to talk to legends every single week. And I'm talking like Guy Kawasaki, Dominique Williams, Dwight Evans, like really impressive humans. And we get to ask them anything. So Scott gets a lot of credit for that because
That
he
is awesome.
created the community, and
Yeah.
it's been pretty remarkable.
Wow. Wow. So, what is an example of a situation where you personally, Lindsay, got to make a really substantial impact, and maybe even in the moment, it might even surprise you a little bit. You're just like, wow, look at what happened there. And
Mhm.
yet you also know that would have never been possible if not for your relationship with Scott or the outlier community. What's an example of something like that where you were empowered in that way?
I'm going to take you back to pre-Scott,
Okay.
back to my corporate days, and I had a leader who was extraordinary, and she asked me she promoted me twice, but the first time she promoted me, she said, Linz, how do you want to run the business? And I was like, me? You're asking me how I want to run the business? And she says, Lens, you've been doing it longer than I have. So yeah, I'm asking you. I want to know what you think. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need 24 hours. I've got to go talk to my team. And so I turned around to my team and I was like, you guys, we have a tremendous opportunity. We have a leader who believes in us and we can try some new and weird stuff. So let's talk about it. What haven't we tried? Because I know there's a lot of ways to skin a cat and there's a ton of things we've never done before. So let's get weird. What do you want to do? And that incredible autonomy she gave me, I extended to my managers and they extended to their teams. And we created this environment. I called my teams Mavericks and Hustlers. I wanted us to wear that badge proudly. I embraced the weird.
I love
And
that.
one of the things that we did was it was truly the island of misfit toys. My teams were coming from all different acquisitions. Nobody cared about the other teams. Nobody wanted to know what the others were selling. They're like, it's hard. It's complicated. I don't get it. I'm just here to do my job and just like get through the day. And I just knew there was something better. And so I said, all right, we're going to start a storytelling program. So each of you are going to be responsible for telling a story about what it is you sell. However, you cannot use technical jargon and you have to tell the story like you're talking to my retired school teacher mother.
Okay.
And so they're going, oh no, we've never had to do this before. This is going to be interesting. But the first story gets told. And all of a sudden, I'm looking around the room and the light bulbs are going off. And they're like, oh, that's what that does. My client was asking if we had a solution. I didn't know that we did. Can we talk later? And so I'm seeing little connections. I'm seeing little collaboration, and then the next story, and then the next story. And what happened was we started opening that up wider beyond our team to adjacent teams. And then the client executives started coming, and then the business partners started coming. And before I knew it, we had 500 people coming to these calls. And I had business partners calling me saying, Linz, I'm so glad you're doing this. Now that I know that that's in my bag of tricks, I'm changing my entire strategy. This is fantastic. I would never have known about that. So we really democratized what we were selling.
Mhm.
We taught each other in the simplest way. And we created all this opportunity for communication, collaboration, and connection. And Kevin, you want to hear the best part?
Yes.
This is years ago. That team, they still call me. They still tell me we talk. They're like, Lindsay, we were just talking about how awesome our team was. We were just talking about all the incredible things we did. This is years later. I mean, like 6, 7 years later, and we're still talking about it.
Wow.
So it was
Wow.
impactful. It's pretty cool.
That has got to be so incredibly rewarding for you,
Hmm,
to
for
have
sure.
that kind of impact, and that years later, they're still talking about that,
Yep.
and, and man, that's what it's all about is right there,
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Wow.
when you've had those amazing leaders, you never forget it.
Yeah.
And you yearn for that. You hope you have that again. And when you have the rotten leaders, all you want to do is get through the day and survive and hope that they're going to move on to something else so you don't have to. And when you think about those two mental states of how I'm going to do my job, they are very, very different. And that's
Totally. Yeah.
all from one position.
Yeah.
So, think about that as a leader and how you speak to your teams and the behavior that you're modeling. If you're one of these churn and burn type leaders who, I work 14 hours a day and I work weekends, well, fine. I'm not going to say good for you because I don't think it's good for you, but is that what you want your people to do? Because that's what they think you want them to do. And if that's the case, they're going to burn out.
Yeah. 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 Um, wow. Well, for anybody who may be listening to this and just thinking, wow, Kevin, I really appreciate Lyndsay. I love how she shows up, and maybe they're thinking like, man, you know what? Maybe it would be good to talk with her or somebody on her team, or maybe they're thinking of somebody else they know that they want to let know
Mhm.
about you. Any websites, any resources we
Yeah.
can share with folks?
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly go to my website, heartbeatforhire.com.
Okay.
My books are linked there. You can find all my socials are linked there as well.
Okay.
Like I said, I'm super active on LinkedIn. And if you're not connected to me, say that you heard me here, and I would love to connect with you there. So.
Awesome. Awesome. Is there any last thing that you feel led to share, Lyndsay, before we call it a wrap?
Yeah, I just want people to really remember that whether you're a parent, you're leading people, you could be even volunteering, you have an opportunity to make an impact. And whenever you're going to lead with your heart and you're going to remember that there are people that are looking to you for guidance, for inspiration, for answers, take a breath. If you think you're going to react poorly, just take a breath and just remember to lead with heart because it will serve you well always.
Yeah. 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 I love that. And when we come from that place of just being of service
Yeah.
for others, uh, what an impact.
Oh,
And
and I probably should have said this. The whole reason we do this isn't to feel good. It's not all roses and daisies and sunshine.
yeah,
Leadership is super hard. But
yeah,
the reason we do this is for results
that's
because
right.
you get results. That team that I talked about, that amazing team that we created, we crushed our numbers quarter after quarter after quarter because we had trust, because we had psychological safety, because we felt safe to take risks. That's what generates results.
Yeah.
So if you want to 10x your results, start leading with heart. That's the big difference maker.
Amen. Amen. Well, Lindsay, I want to thank you so much for just taking the time to have this conversation today. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. And I am just excited to get this out there and share it with a lot of folks. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for being a wonderful host, and thanks for having me, Kevin. It was a
You
pleasure.
bet. You bet.